if I wrote a story about my friend's kidney donation and no one ever read it, did I really write a story about a kidney donation? It's a little bit more petty. Hi there, I'm Nicole Wilbur. I'm a writer and story nerd, and welcome back to my channel. So, there has been a lot of chatter around AuthorTube in the last few months about kidneys, plagiarism, stealing, all sorts of things. The first thing I saw about this was Alexa Dunn's video about the bad art friend. I've watched that video like 2 or 3 times. It is amazing. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. I'm not going to explain the scenario here. There was also Michelle Schusterman's video about the fan fiction Bitcoin thing that had a lot of copyright issues in it. There was the Alexandra Sokoloff and Sarah something, I can't remember her name, I'll put it here, where Alexandra Sokoloff accused Sarah of plagiarism. Allegedly, from what I know of the situation, it does not seem like it was plagiarism. You can't copyright three-act structure, but there's been a lot of talk about this. And Kate Kavanaugh recently put out a video this week as well, actually, about can you steal a plot? And I kind of wanted to take that and do some self-reflection, which is why I'm calling this video, Am I a Bad Art Friend? I am going to talk about 3 examples from my own writing where I have stolen things, and talk about the spectrum a little bit, and are those okay, or is it not okay? And then at the very end, I am going to talk about how you might disguise something. And I have an example of how you would take something that happened in real life and then disguise it appropriately. So here we go. We're gonna figure out if I am a bad art friend. And please, tell me below your thoughts on this as we go. Have you ever taken something from real life and regretted it later, or changed your mind, or kept it? And I'm really excited to hear about it. So my first one is kind of the easiest one. So I was writing a scene the other day, and my characters were dancing. It was before the heist. You know, they had a projection of the Last Supper up on the wall. It was the last night you're about to steal something. You dance. That's what my characters do. They dance. And so I needed one character who is to do something, to do something interesting. And it reminded me of my friend who, when we were, out dancing together last fall in Florence, he told us that walls are severely underutilized in dancing, in club dancing, and you can do a lot with a wall in terms of dancing against the wall, dancing with the wall, and it was hilarious. It was very funny. It was a very funny night, and I was like, I will have my character dance against the wall. He doesn't say walls are underutilized, doesn't do any of that, but he dances against the wall. And I was like, you know what? I took that from my friend. And I was like, interesting. I wonder if he read that, if he would recognize himself in that character. And then I thought, ooh, is that character subconsciously a lot like my friend? I don't know. But that's one example where, my friend was dancing on walls, and so I had my character dance on walls. They weren't climbing up the walls. You know what I mean, against walls. And so that is one very simple example. And I'm gonna say that I think that is totally okay. You can disagree with me, let me know. So I think right now that's gonna stay. I know it's inspired by my friend. I stole his technique about wall dancing. I do want to go through in my edits and just make sure I didn't seriously, subconsciously turn my friend into this character, and make sure there are enough differences. But beyond that, I feel like that's good. This second example, is a little bit more petty, and I'm going to tell you right away, I am going to change it. I do think it's really significant, though, before I say these next 2, which are a little more serious, to recognize that I don't think when you write something and it doesn't go anywhere, that's bad. My journaling, I realized during the pandemic, I haven't been doing a lot of journaling when in quarantine and such, and I realized that's because I don't write about myself when I'm journaling. I write about other people, the social interactions that I see, the problems that they're having and like how they're navigating them, because I find that just really interesting and I like to reflect and think about it. It might be very weird. I write down what people say to me. I don't know, but it's in my journal. And you know, it's the same as everyone's written an angry letter to their boss or their friend or their husband or whatever, and then, you know, not sent it, you know? So it's like, if I wrote a story about my friend's kidney donation and no one ever read it, did I really write a story about a kidney donation? I don't know. So that's what this second one is. I was working on a story, and it's a story in my Christmas short story series, which is a story that I absolutely love. And my character in that short story, her name is Diana Di. She was going to meet a guy in a church after a Christmas concert. And I knew why he was in the church, but I was like, I need there to be a reason for her to be sitting in like an empty church at night by herself. And so I was thinking about it, and I thought of a situation that I'd had quite recently from when I was writing the story with a friend of mine, a friendship that ended. And that friendship ended, and this friend, who's no longer my friend, said something to me in like the last thing that we ever said to each other, the last thing she ever said to me. And it blew my mind. I was like, what? What did you say? And it like signaled the end to me of that friendship. And I talked about it to my best friends at the time. I was like, what is this? And they're like, yeah, that's a weird thing to say. And so I decided to take like that hurt and experience that I had of, you know, friendships ending. I said, okay, that feeling, I want my character to have that feeling. And so I gave her sort of a finality friendship 800 words before I get her seated in the church to get her in the right mindset. And I decided that the character who is getting her in that like kind of hurt mindset, like the end of a relationship, I gave her the line that my friend said to me. And it's not that crazy, I don't think. My best friend did read this draft, and when she saw the line, she wrote in capital letters, "Oh no, you didn't!" Exclamation mark, ha ha ha. And that to me is a sign that I need to take that out, and I need to change it. I need to disguise it. I think I can write something better than that, but it was just, that's the only part of that entire story that I feel like is that personal to me, and was something, or at least that personal, that happened so close. It was like 6 months later or something, and I think I put it in there, yeah, out of spite. I did. I was like, I put it in there out of spite. No one's ever read it, just my friend read it. It's fine. And anybody else, the 2 other people who read it, they have no idea. But before I published it, if I do or send it anywhere, I'm gonna change the line. I still feel, you know, that is it's a little bit cheap. You know, I can do better than that. I can do better than the line that my friend said to me, and we don't need to make this petty. It was for me, we had the moment, and now we're moving on. Okay, so, and then my third example here is something that I have not written at all, but it's an idea that's not really an idea, more of a theme, I guess, that's in my head. So when I was in university, there was a situation with one of my friends. I'm just going to keep it very broad. There was a situation, it was a bad situation with one of my friends, and it was very upsetting, very bad. And the community, like my social circle, not the people who are like close to me, but like the next ring of people, like that whole social circle, kind of went sort of crazy, but it was all like under the covers, kind of like it was never really explicit. Like no one was going around talking about it widely, but it was all in these like little side conversations and side snippets. And there were a lot of interactions that my friend, who was at the center of this situation, she didn't even know about it. It was people coming up to me and saying things, me overhearing things. I mean, just witnessing interactions between her and other people. And it was crazy. I mean, crazy how bad some of these people were. And it was a really interesting situation because these were people that I had wanted to be friends with, but then had not become friends with because thank God, because they really weren't my people. Like I was like, oh, let's be friends, and then it just never really clicked, and I was like, okay. And that happens sometimes, and I think it's usually, especially in university when you're like trying to find your group. I'm so glad I was not in that group. They were kind of like the wider circle, my close circle, great people. The wider circle, holy hell, like just the gossip and the rumors and the maliciousness. And we'd all done this sort of training together where it was about empathy and being a leader and helping and being supportive. And they weren't. It was just the hypocrisy, like the ridiculousness of this, and the fact that I knew values that these people held generally, and that they were just like blatantly not following values that they saw themselves as holding. And it crossed my mind to be like, oh, I would love to write this story. But the next thought was like, I can't write this story. I don't even think I could without disguising it a lot and without having a lot of distance from it. So that's kind of an example where it's on hold, but that experience and the things that I saw really have sort of stuck with me and are like in the back of my head of like, hey, you could write a story exploring this. But that would be a case where it's like, it must be very, very disguised. And even if it isn't disguised, like the fact that it came from that situation, I wonder if I would still feel guilty and worried about it, because I wouldn't want anyone to recognize it. You know what I mean? It would have to be done very, very, very carefully. And I'm sure I'm interested in hearing, like, are there any scenarios that are similar for you? No, it's not just changing names, right? It's changing entire circumstances. People were like, why did she have to donate a kidney? Like, couldn't she have, I don't know, done something else in the story that could disguise it? I don't know, like donate her a part of her liver, or even better would be making it not organ donation at all, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of what I'm thinking for that story, where if I wanted to explore those topics, it would have to be something very, very different. How do you disguise? Like, what are we talking about when we say that, when we're talking about stealing but hiding, stealing but disguising? And so I was reading a really good book. It's total entertainment value. It was a book about Grey's Anatomy, and it's like an oral history of Grey's Anatomy. And there's a lot of drama that went on with the Grey's Anatomy cast that I didn't know about till I read this book. Again, is it Pulitzer Prize winning journalism? Nope. But it was very fun to read. And there was a scenario on Grey's Anatomy where an actor used a slur against one of his, allegedly used a slur in reference to one of his colleagues. And then he used it again. I mean, he wasn't like yelling at this colleague. He was like in a fist fight with another one, and it kind of came out. And then they were at an award show, and he said the slur again. And then an actress was like, stop using the slur, shut up. And he ended up getting fired. And I thought that was really interesting, because there was a lot of controversy around that. And I could see how someone at the time would be like, oh, that's so cool to write about someone who is, we don't know what their value systems are really, but using this slur, using this word, and what are the consequences of language and stuff like that. How do you disguise that if you want to disguise it? I mean, it is kind of public discourse, but you know, you don't really know what happened. So you want to create your own imaginary world. How do you disguise that? So I would kind of take that from the context of like, oh, it was the actors, and the actors got in a fist fight, and he said something to a different actor about another actor, and blah, 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 blah. I feel like what you have to do is you have to kind of take a step back from it. You have to take a step back and say, what is the core of what's going on here? And the core is, right, someone says something, and it basically ruins something in their life. In that case, it kind of ruined his career. It could, for example, instead, you could say, okay, I want it to ruin something, explore the impact of language. Maybe it would be even more interesting to have that happen where it ruins relationships. I was listening to my Harry Potter podcast, and they were talking about how Snape calls Lily mudblood, and that ruins his relationship with her, and it's over, and that's it. And that kind of ends his, like, chance to become good. And I think that's really, really interesting. And I think the Grey's Anatomy stuff happened quite far after that scene, or maybe not. But I do think that that would be a way you could effectively disguise that incident. If we have a character, you know, using a different word in a different context, magical world, and having it ruin a relationship, I think you've accurately explored those same themes while disguising it and being respectful of the people who are originally involved in that situation. I think. What do you think? I'm so interested to hear this one. I really want to hear your thoughts, so just tell me what you think. And if you've ever been in this scenario where you're like, could I write about that? Should I write about that? Should I change that line? Do you use lines you hear from other people. This is just such an interesting topic with so many rich nuances and stuff. And if you haven't watched that video about the bad art friend from Alexa Dunn, the way she narrates it is amazing. You must watch it. Go watch it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I'm Nicole Wilbur. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.